Welcome to the inaugural episode of We're Hiring, a show where we discuss the challenges and wins of hiring in the trades. I'm Gina Camacho, the co-founder of Blue Recruit. Blue Recruit is a direct hire marketplace that connects skilled trades workers with hiring companies. We eliminated the needs for resumes and job posts and instead provided a different type of sourcing platform that matches job seekers with companies based purely on skill sets. Today, we are focusing on the automotive industry, specifically auto mechanics. We are going to be speaking with Bob Graham from Mobile Mechanic in Baltimore, Maryland, about what companies can be looking for when hiring, how to interview candidates to ensure they're a good fit. Let's go ahead and just jump right in. All right, so Bob, I'd love, as we kind of start introducing ourselves, I'd love you to tell me a little bit about yourself, about your company, and how long you've been in the industry.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. This is really great. I appreciate you inviting me in. I work for a company called Mobile Auto Service. We're based in Baltimore, and we do mobile auto repair for residential and commercial customers. So we literally go out to your location and do the work. And you may say, well, how do you do that? We have oil filters on our vehicle. We have box trucks that our employees work with. Our mechanics go out. They're uniformed. And if they don't have a product that they need to put on a vehicle, say brake pads or something, we will source it at the local store, the auto parts store, and then come back and do the work. And it's slightly more expensive than to take it to a Jiffy Lube or a dealer, but you get the convenience. So when they come to my house and work on my vehicle and change the oil, I'm in working. They knock on the door, I hand them the keys, they go out and do their thing. They come back and go, Mr. Graham, here's your keys. I've got to call into the office for them to help you pay, and I'm on my way. And that's our model. And it's worked now for 20 years. I've been with the company about a year and maybe 3 months. I was actually brought in as we started to expand. So our vision for the company is in the Baltimore, Washington corridor to go from, we were at 3 trucks when I came on board. Our goal is to be at 200 trucks. We're at 9 today. So we're seeing this aging of the workforce. I'm 56 years old. I thought I was young in the workforce. I'm starting to realize I'm really not young in the workforce. And that is interesting to me because I've got a lot of knowledge and a lot of expertise that I've developed over all the years. I don't know how you communicate that to people. And I think that's one of the things for older mechanics. There's an opportunity to bring in people and help apprentice them. I have a nephew who went into building maintenance. He didn't want to go to college. He saw his siblings were going to college and getting huge debt. So he went and worked for a company. He's doing building maintenance. He's making a killing. And he's doing work that his siblings criticize because it's hard labor, but he's out at 2 a.m. shoveling snow at his workplace making overtime. They're still incurring college debt. And I think we as a society really need to start taking a different look at the trades.
Talking kind of about the younger generation and getting them excited about the trades. I think even if there's someone that maybe they're, those weekend warriors, it's a hobby of theirs to go fix their car in the garage.
Yep.
They have a desk job, they hate it. Maybe how do we speak to those people to say, okay, you love doing this, you can actually do it as a career, you can get paid well. How do we get those people? What's something that maybe your company's doing or you've seen others do to encourage those people to get into the trade?
Those are the type of people that we're looking for. So we've started to identify some real key trends that other industries have also identified. People who have been in competitive situations in their life. So people who are athletes do well with us because if the customer gives them a hard time, they don't, oh no, okay, yeah, customer gave me a hard time and I kept doing my job. We also are finding that people that work on cars on the weekends at home or learn from family members can be really good. But I will also tell you, they tend to embellish on their resume and in their discussions what they can do. And that can be problematic for us because our starting pay is based on your skill level. And if you come into the role and your skill level doesn't match what you told us, we're overpaying you. And that can be a real friction point. So, what I would say is to someone who hasn't worked in a shop 2, 4, 7, 10 years, be really honest about what you know. And so being honest about that and having that open discussion. And also, the other thing that we're looking for is a willingness to learn. Here's what I know. You guys do some really cool stuff with diesel. I'd really like to learn that. We'll invest in that. We would that's fine for us. And I think that's true in most companies. And so I think if you're trying to get hired in any field, especially in the automotive field, you really have to be willing to learn. And I think in that interview, you've got to demonstrate that. Someone said to us in an interview a couple weeks ago, we're like, what do you do in your spare time? This is going to sound really weird, but I watch YouTube videos about car stuff. And I was like what kind of stuff? Just how to fix things, weird stuff they fix. I'm like, oh, is there a channel for that? He's like, yeah, this is a channel I go to. So I called up, look at the channel, make sure he's not making it up. And I'm like, oh, what was the last video you watched? And he told me, and I found it and watched a couple of minutes of it. Like, this is legit. He wanted to learn these things. He saw, and it also shows your passion. If you're doing that at night on your free time, you really do care about cars. And we find a lot of mechanics that are really successful. Their weekend work is playing with their vehicles, their friends' vehicles. They just, it's 24/7. Like someone said to me a couple months ago, they're like, so the first car I worked on was with my grandfather. I was like 4 years old and he let me turn the wrench. And I thought it was the greatest thing in the world. And as I got older with my grandfather, I got to turn more wrenches. And then suddenly I got to do this and I got to do this. And then I was 16 and we were building a wrecked car into something for me to drive. And then my grandfather died. And I realized I wanted to carry that legacy on. That's the guy I want working with me. Because now we're not talking about a job. We're talking about a life. This is important.
Do you have a story you can tell me, or just some high-level examples of what really makes a good day on the job?
I think for our mechanics, when I hear about a good day, it's usually where they solved a problem for a vehicle that had been a problem for a long time. Um, and it's not always the second day where they solve it. I mean, sometimes it's the fourth time they go out and work on that. And we had one mechanic that I ran into at the end of the day. I'm like, "How was your day?" And he said, "This was a good one." I'm like, "Wow, what happened?" He's like, "I finally solved a problem. I've been to this vehicle 4 times, and today I finally figured out what that problem was." And it was something that that you just wouldn't know. It was a wire was snipped the wrong way or something. I mean, one of those really freaky things. And I think that's one of the things I didn't expect when I got involved in the auto industry. I thought it was pretty much cookie cutter. You look at the diagram, you do the work. But what I'm learning is every vehicle has its own personality and it does quirky things. And I have a 15-year-old Honda Pilot that they've done some work on, and it's got a quirky thing that there's no scientific evidence why it does it. Still operates, and they're like, "Yeah, it's not going to stop you. Keep going." But that's one of the things I like, and I think for the mechanics, that's what brings them back. Just like the doctor sees 100 patients a day who have, heart disease, but there's that one he sees who's 16, and he goes, "Boy, if I can save a 16-year-old, he might get another 80 years." And I think for mechanics, it's the same way. It's the solving the problem. Or I know our mechanics really get excited when someone just thanks them profusely for just, oh, it's so great that you came out here and did this, especially if it's an emergency situation, because we do some emergency stuff at nights, on the weekends, on along the I-95 corridor sometimes. Those people are just, you know, appreciative. If it's raining, if it's cold, they show their appreciation to the mechanics in a very powerful way. And I think that's what the mechanics really get excited about. Just like when they don't get that affirmation, when the customer doesn't thank them and just grabs the keys and says, it's about time, that kind of leaves a bad taste in their mouth. And I think that's true of all of us, right? I mean, we want to be acknowledged for our work that we do. And I think um, our mechanics do hard work. Today it was 19 degrees in Baltimore when I got up, and mechanics were on the road at 7 a.m. It was 24 degrees. They were outside doing their job. They were doing it last week in the snow. They've done it in the rain. We get them really good rain gear, but my understanding is the best rain gear in the world isn't going to keep you dry. And they're working on the side of the road. They're working in yards that are dirty. They're working, it's not for the faint of heart. It is not a dress up like me, sit in the office kind of job. It really isn't. And I've come to really respect what mechanics have to go through in a day to do a really, really, really important job for all of us, because we are so dependent on vehicles. And not just to drive to get to work, but when that 18-wheeler pulls off at the side of the road, your Amazon delivery might not come. The groceries that you've been expecting to get in the grocery store, and we're seeing the problems with supply chain. And part of that supply chain problem is companies can't find the drivers. And so there's another industry that's really struggling to find people that want to do that kind of work.
And it sounds like one of the questions I was going to have you, and I feel like you answered it, is why would someone, instead of going to a shop where traditionally that's where mechanics go, and be remote? And when I think about the experience that I've had in shops, rarely am I ever directly speaking to the mechanic that fixed my car. So a benefit, I think you'll agree, is that you're actually getting to talk to your customer. You're seeing how happy they are when you fix something, save them on the side of the road when their car is broken down. Do you think that's super
Well,
important
that's
for the guys
that's
in your
part
team?
of it. Another part of it is you get to be your own boss. We've really made it a lot easier for a mechanic to do the parts they like about the job. Our office staff is dealing with the invoicing. Our office staff is getting permission from the customer after we figure out what we need to do. So they're having the hard discussion. Mrs. Johnson, looks like we need to replace the rotors. How much is that going to be? That mechanic's just sitting waiting for us to say go or no go. So we've made that really nice for a mechanic. I think being your own boss on that job site is very appealing. We also pay by the hour. So our company, the minute you turn the key in your vehicle in the morning, you start getting paid. So if a mechanic had to leave at 5:30 this morning to get from north of Baltimore to Northern Virginia, as long as he gets there by 7 a.m. when we start, he gets paid for that whole drive. And we pay them until the end of their workday, every hour. So if they're driving, they're getting paid. If they're at the customer and the customer's, well, I can't find my checkbook, they're getting paid while the customer looks around for their checkbook. So it's not flat rate. And that's of appeal to a lot of mechanics that we're talking to in the Baltimore, Washington area. It's like, whoa, that's not what I was expecting. And we also have opportunities for them to make overtime. They can make time and a half if they take an evening call or if they work late. If they one weekend every 2 months, they're on call. If they get called out, they get double time on that weekend. That's not, I've seen some of the pay our mechanics make. They their base is lower than what they see at the end of the month, end of the year, because if they're willing to get their hands dirty, there's opportunity there. And that's why we are able to hire when everyone's looking for mechanics. And that's another thing we do that our mechanics really like. We do a 4-day work week. So they work four 11-hour days. They start at 7 a.m. and typically go till 6 p.m., but they have an hour for lunch built into that. So they're getting a 3-day weekend every weekend. And they like
That's
that.
huge.
And it's okay for us. We used to be closed on Friday. That was an emergency service day. We had Monday and Thursday. Now we have enough staffing that We have people work Tuesday, Friday, people that work Monday and Thursday, and that that's it. The other thing is, I would tell you, if a mechanic came and said, "Look, I can work for you guys from 7 a.m. to noon, 4 days a week or 5 days a week," we take them. We're it's a mechanics marketplace like you can't imagine. It, but you got to have the goods. If you can do the work, you can start negotiating what you want it to look like. You can't ask for $100 an hour. That's not going to happen. But you can certainly ask for perhaps more than you've ever asked for, or look at other things. Because one of the things I know, being on the employer side, benefits are easier to give away. If someone said, "Hey, I'd like a second week of vacation that first year because we go away for 2 weeks," that can often be easier than increasing salary.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, mechanics have this opportunity. And I think what I've seen by and large is mechanics are very passive when it comes to negotiating what that job looks like. They're just like, "Okay, I got to do it." And, I think sometimes it's just like when we say you only work one weekend and you'll be on call that weekend, not the whole weekend, every 2 months, they're going, "Oh, finally, no more Saturdays and Sundays." That's all they hear. But
Mm-hmm.
that's just part of it. So I think there's an opportunity to coordinate that with the mechanic and really talk about what fits the situation.
Mm-hmm.
In
And
in and that requires both sides to be open to that. And not all shops, not all mobile companies like ours around the country are open to that. But the ones that are getting the employees. And that's the name of the game.
mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. Um, and I'd love to hear, just in the interviews that you've done, can you tell me a little bit about someone that was a good negotiator? Like, how should a job seeker that's in an interview that has those skills, that knows they're in high demand, what would you recommend how they would approach that in an interview?
Haven't seen it yet from a mechanic.
Hmm.
Which and in fairness, I've done a lot of research on this area, and I've done a lot of working in this area. I've coached college students on interviewing. So interviewing is not hard for me. You can see this is not hard for me. So I can't change my own oil. I have no mechanical ability whatsoever. I I don't even I had someone show me where my transmission was a couple weeks ago because they replaced it, and I just wanted to know where it was. So I'm not I have my gifts and mechanics have their gifts. And I think that may be part of it. But I think where you have that discussion is, first of all, you have to know what you want. What is of most importance to you? Is it quality time with your kids? Do you want to be home at 4 o'clock every day so that you can be with your kids after school? If that's the most important thing, then that's what you've got to have a discussion around. Hey, you know what? I'm willing to work instead of a 4 day week. Could I work 5 days a week and work 7 to 3:30? It's a negotiation, and it's what are you willing to give to get that thing you want. If you're looking for 2 weeks of vacation instead of 1 week the first year, are you willing to take a salary that might be $1 an hour less? If you go into it saying, "I want a win-win-win. I want the highest pay, I want the most vacation, and I want a flexible schedule and all the," it will not work. The negotiation is what's the important thing, and realizing it's about win-win. How can you make, when we're talking to someone, we were talking to someone yesterday about an office job, and he was saying, "I have to pick up my kids in the morning and I have to pick them up in the afternoon." We're like, "Okay, sounds like you have a 6 hour window in the middle. Would you be willing to work for us for those 6 hours? Could you commit to that?" He's like, "Except for days when the kids have off for snow or they're sick." "Okay, but the other days, could you do that?" "Yes." "Okay." And then he told us a salary that was equal to a 8 or 10 hour day. It's like, seeing a
Doesn't
little
work.
problem here that it's not adding up. Yeah, well, that's why I made it my last job. I said, "And your last job, you told me you work 10 hours a day, right? 5 days a week." "Yeah." "We're offering you 6 hours. So wouldn't you want to reduce that by about 40%, maybe even 50%? "Oh, I can't do that. I need to make that money." That's where you run into trouble. There's got to be a give and take. And I think for the mechanics, it's knowing what really matters to you. It's okay if being around your family and you want to see your kids be raised. That's okay. I know that's not what the industry typically values. If that's what you value, be honest about it. Hey, I'm looking for a job that gives me a flexibility that my son plays lacrosse and I want to be able to go watch his lacrosse games. It's like 2-3 days a week. Is it possible that I give you his schedule up front and on his game days, I'm off at 2 o'clock? I would go with that. That's an
Mm-hmm.
employee who's going to really want to work for us because we're giving them the thing they want. We're not going to have a problem with that employee coming to work each day because he's going, if I don't have this, I'm going back to wherever I'm going, a shop where they're going to just, you're here from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., get over it. Oh, you have a life? Sorry about that.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to really know what you're looking for. And it can't be everything. Is it quality time with your family? Is it more vacation? Is it opportunity? Like, are you interested in being a manager? If you're getting older and you've turned wrenches for 20 or 30 years, it might be time to start thinking about, hey, what kind of positions do you have for someone who just doesn't want to go out and turn wrenches all day anymore? And if that's what's really important, then that's a different discussion than I want to make the most money.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's the next phase of my career? And do you guys see a place for me to help you? Maybe it's within the office as a service writer. Maybe it's dealing with problem customers. Maybe it's tech support for our mechanics who don't know what they're doing on something. We've got a lot of options, but what I find is mechanics don't generally talk to us because they haven't really thought about it. They're just living in the moment. I need a job. You're talking to me about a job and I want a job.
Mm-hmm.
It's more than that. I mean, my job is a big part of my life. It's got to fit my life.
Well, I think a lot of that's important because a lot of people are terrified at that negotiation phase of the job offer, of the interview. I know for me, I always hated that part, but it's really just a casual conversation about this is what I want. I'm willing to compromise with you, but this is important. And I think that's a pretty easy conversation to have. And you're right. If the company can't do it, if the job seeker can't do it, then it's not going to be a good fit. Maybe it'll be a good fit for 3 months, but then that relationship's going to break. So it's really important on both sides if you want to make it last, because nobody likes changing jobs. You
Right,
want to find a job you're happy in and you want to stay.
right,
So I love that. It's making that negotiation a lot easier. Just what's important. And as an employer, if you're willing to give them an hour or two to go to their kids' games, that's huge, beyond huge, and it's not a huge loss for the employer.
right. We had an employee who wanted to go to a marriage counselor one night a week. And it had to be at like 5 p.m. We're like, okay, you're off at 4 o'clock every Wednesday. Really? Yeah. And it's just, that's not a big ask. If that's what it takes to get someone to be happy to come to work each day, I'll do that all day long. It does have a ripple effect. It means the office has to logistically deal with things. I'm not minimizing that, but if that's what we do to bring in a happy mechanic, that's the world we're in. Because we are in a workplace where everything is changing. Look at the automotive industry. It's not going to be long till we go from gas and diesel to primarily electric.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be a huge shift. And I think it's coming a lot sooner than we realize. And if
Yeah.
you're one going, well, there'll still be gas and there'll still be, diesel. There'll be some, but that number is going to start to slide downward, and the demands and the type of maintenance that gets done is going to be different. Replacing an $8,000 battery is going to be what mechanics are doing a lot of, and resetting computer codes. And if you're under the age of probably 40, you should be looking at that.
Mm-hmm.
That should not be like it'll never happen. That's coming.
Yeah.
And as an employer, we're looking at that. We're already starting to talk about what those implications are for us as we go forward. And that might be 5, 7, 10 years out. But I don't want it to just show up one day and be like, hey, wow, we just got someone who wants electric repair. We don't have any mechanics that do electric. Oh boy, that's a problem, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I don't know, last question for you is, how do you stay on top of the technology as a mechanic or as a company? Is it, some of those
We,
YouTube videos, conferences, continuing learning? What would you recommend?
well, it's funny. We just went through a process in the last couple of weeks of changing our GPS system. We were using a prominent national telephone company's GPS system, and I started to hear from people that I was talking to in the industry that there were better alternatives that were cheaper. And so we started to look around. We also wanted to be able to put GPSs on fleets of vehicles that we were working on. So we were looking for two prongs of this. And it was just a matter of going out on the internet, asking some people what they were using, vetting those, and then calling the companies and having honest discussions about, here's what we are, here's where we're going. Can you partner with us? And partnering with us is at a minimum net 30. At a maximum, we're talking about buying hundreds of these units. We'd like to buy them at a discounted price. I don't want your price I see on your website. Those types of things. So having that kind of discussion, understanding your buying power, and also knowing that making a technology shift is expensive. When we make that shift, it's going to be we'll lose a day of work time to change out the units. We'll probably lose at least 2 or 3 days of office time because they'll have to adjust to a new system. But it could save us, what's 10 times 100?
1,000.
10,000, right?
Yeah.
It could save us $10,000 a month if we have 100 vehicles, minimum. That's a chunk. Especially in a world where we're paying mechanics more than ever. If we can save on the technology, you can manage things. So that's where technology, and also we're going to our website. We're using our website more. We are posting blog posts. We're posting more video. We're trying to. We posted a page for mechanics with the other owner talking about what we offer mechanics, and now we send that to Blue Recruit people. They see that, and it's like they can get a feel for who and what we are. That's a use of technology that led to more people coming back to us, and also more people saying no. I don't like what you do, which I'd rather you say no before we get on an interview.
Yeah, absolutely.
That you're wasting your time and our time. So that video really helps us draw the line in the sand and say, this is who and what we are. If that's of interest to you, we'd love to talk. If that's not, no harm, no foul. So I think that's yet another way to do technology. And we're also phoning, texting, and emailing our customers everything, mandatorily, all three. And our system allows it to be done simultaneously. And we're finding more and more our customers are using text. We're getting more requests by text, which I text all day. So it shouldn't be a surprise. Technology shift is hard. It's expensive. It requires training. You're going to be a fish out of water for a while. When we went to all paperless and iPads for everything, that was a pretty big shift. But now our mechanics can be dispatched from their house. They can pull up on their iPad with the internet access, directions. They can pull up the orders from home the night before. If we change their orders that they're going to work on the next day, they could be like, oh, okay, I'm doing this, because they like to know what's coming. So it gives us a lot of flexibility. And soon, I think we'll have office people who are not in the office. I think they'll be working remotely, which opens the door to, instead of hiring from the Baltimore area, they could be in North Carolina where you are.
Yeah.
They could be in California.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there's opportunities with technology that we're just really starting to dig our feet into. And it also, for us, we could expand outside the Baltimore, Washington area with our system to other cities, because if you have an iPad, we could easily track you and have you work with us. So that's an exciting byproduct. We're not there yet, but it's possible.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the thing with technology is it's going to be a short-term pain, inconvenience, but the benefit will outweigh it in the end because it's going to allow something you mentioned with like working from home and remote. We're seeing that in the trades. That's becoming more and more common as an available position for people
Oh
because
yeah.
of technology, which is awesome. But I know we've taken up a lot of your time today, Bob. I really appreciate it. I think this is great conversation. A lot of good stuff in terms of really just interviewing. Overwhelmingly, honesty and transparency is really what's important for both sides
Yes.
of the conversation within that interview. So this was absolutely great. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate the opportunity, and I appreciate all you do for me, Gina. You've been really helpful to me personally as we've gotten in with Blue Recruit, and I like what you guys are doing.
Yeah. Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it.
Sure.